Yeah, I kind of goofed on that title card. So, it happens every so often. I realize that I'm doing this by myself, and as such, I'm going to make mistakes, learn from them, and then make bigger ones. So, let me just start off by saying this is the 90th episode of Drezen Draws. And you know what that means. You know what's coming down the pike. Yeah. Episode number 100. Yeah. But at the same time, I still gotta do like 9 more shows. That's one of the reasons why I started doing like 2 a week. So I'm just like, hey, you get there a little faster, if you just kind of do more a week, because where am I going? Where do I normally go except for a walk around the area? I mean, I could sit here and grumble about all the things that we're not able to really do these days, but I prefer to stay productive. So, that being said, let's start the music. Maestro. Okie dokes. Alright, and let's draw Rodan. Rodan first appeared in the 1956 film of the same title. In Japan, he is known as Radon. They just, when the King brothers bought the rights to distribute Rodan in the States in 1957, they switched the A and the O around. The articles that I'm using as a reference for Rodan here is pictures of are pictures of a very expensive X Plus action figure. But at the same time, I want to make this my own. Rodan was most assuredly softened up for future film appearances. But I have to say, today was the first time that I saw the original Japanese version of Rodan in its entirety, as crazy as that sounds. Like, oh, well, I thought you were a huge Godzilla fan. Godzilla, yes. Rodan, well, not so much. In all honesty, I mean, Rodan is probably my least favorite kaiju. Not that I keep a list going. But I get that, he or she is a fan favorite, and that's why, we vote on here most of the time. Because then otherwise, I would either just be doing all the stuff that you maybe don't want to see, or I would be working for free and taking requests. That's fine for maybe a few episodes, but not all the time. No, that's not good. I hope everyone had a pleasant Father's Day, especially a good buddy of mine who I can't remember if I wished a happy Father's Day to or not, and I kind of feel bad. So Chris Super, Big time Godzilla fan and good friend for many years. I hope you had a wonderful Father's Day, you and especially your dad, Gary. I hope you're all doing very well, and hopefully someday soon, but not too soon, because we want this thing to go away. We'll all hang out again, and it'll be lots and lots of fun. I believe I still have a Rodan action figure from Trendmasters at my parents' house, but it's of the 1993 Rodan. It doesn't really do me much good here. What I'm referencing is the 1956 version. His wings are very interesting. I almost expected them to be more bat-like, but, if everything kind of sort of resembles a bat or a bird, it just kind of gets a little tiresome. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that's the opinion of the designers of Rodan, but just from my experience designing characters, certain things, are best suited for certain types, but you also don't want to spread yourself too thin, to the point where almost every other character that you draw looks exactly the same as the last dude, or dudette, or both or none, because we don't discriminate here at Drezen Media. My father remembers watching Rodan when it came to American television back in the late 50s and early 60s. I also was very fortunate to have met the original suit actor for Rodan, who was also the original suit actor for Godzilla himself, Haru Nakajima. I met him at Chiller Theater in New Jersey. Hello. Met Nakajima-san at Chiller Theater in New Jersey back in 2014. Really, really, really wonderful man. I mean, it's not often that you get to meet some of your childhood heroes, And he was one of them. I just didn't know it until I actually started learning about these creatures more in depth when I was in my 20s. Oops. I saw the American version of Rodan when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And my opinion of the film is, yeah, it's entertaining. Although the pacing is a bit slower than desired. And I mean, one of the problems with monster movies is that nowadays it's like, you know, everyone sees the monster like almost immediately, and it was kind of the same deal back in the day, where it's like the monster was on the poster. It's like, okay, the suspense right here is kind of ruined. So, you know, what the hell, man? Rodan would go on to appear in numerous films in the Godzilla series, exclusively, because he never appeared again in one of his own films. Most recently, he appeared in Godzilla King of the Monsters, released by Warner Brothers just last year. And I think, arguably, the best design of Rodan, aside from the 2019 version, which looked terrific, is the original. He's so much more. Okay. Trying to remember what I was saying, but like my girlfriend says, must focus. I think I'm gonna change the direction of the horns. Rodan was definitely softened up from his first appearance when he appeared alongside Godzilla in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster in 1964. Now, Godzilla 2 is also given a bit of a makeover for both that and previous films. For one thing, Rodan's fangs, for the most part, were dropped. Don't know why, but something tells me special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya had something to do with it, because he knew that these films were being seen by children. He was very conscious to not allow for excessive violence in the films, which, you know, I mean, I get it. Don't agree with it, but hey, you know, this is an argument today about a lot of things, movie-related, censorship. I mean, in all honesty, yes, we are a much softer society than we realize, but in a way, we always have been. There's always been some degree of censorship, and there kind of always is gonna be. So, in that regard, you know, it is what it is. Especially with the events of the last several weeks, you know, where advertisers, manufacturers, and whatever have gone so far as to question whether or not certain product lines ought to continue or not. And I get it. I get it. You know, and sometimes you may not think so right now, depending on your beliefs, but it could be for the better, because the idea is to go forward, not back. You can look back, but if you want to go back, I don't know if that's the greatest thing in the world. cat hair all over my tablet. I gotta do something about that. That's a very loose sketch of Mr. Rodan here. I don't know what that was. Never seen that before. Interesting. Very interesting. I learned something today, kids. In a way, I think it would have been a bit handier had I gotten the Rodan figure. But at the same time, it almost doesn't really even matter because it looks totally different between the figure and the version I'm drawing. Pretty interesting, I think, about Rodan's debut film is that it was still very early in the makings of these kinds of films in Japan. So, origin stories of the monsters would vary. I mean, obviously over time, but also in the very beginning. Like, the idea that there were going to be any Godzilla sequels was kind of a radical idea when the first Godzilla came out in 1954. But with the success of that film, a sequel proved to be very much in the cards for Toho and for the staff that produced the first Godzilla film. And they followed it with such films as The Human Vapor and Godzilla Raids Again, which was premiered just about 6 months after the launch of the first Godzilla film. I don't know if I like this picture as much. He looks a bit compromising. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Rodan was played on the ground by suit actor Katsumi Tezuka, who shared the role of Godzilla with Nakajima-san in the first Godzilla movie. Apparently he's still alive. I don't know how true this is, but, you know, he could be 107 years old. Who knows? I mean, if he's alive, great, but, you know, I think at this point he's not going to be very much in the public eye, both because of the pandemic and also because when you get to be that age, you're quite fragile. Right now, I'm not a huge fan of going outside because it takes me away from my precious comics, but at the same time, if I got to be that age, I wouldn't want to go outside anyway. I'm like, screw you people. I know that there are some spikes that have to go on his chest, but I'm getting to them. Don't rush me. Okay. Bear with me for just a minute, guys. I'll be right back. also doing laundry. The exoskeleton bones don't have to be exactly precise because if you really think about it, you know, all humans and animals are biologically different to begin with. I mean, if we were all the same and perfect clones, that's a different story, but at least the way I've seen it, it was good to be different. Rodan was also the first of the Toho Kaiju films to be made in color. And what bothered me about the DVD that I have is that the transfer of the film looked noticeably dark. It was very hard to see certain scenes, kind of annoying, but I got through it because, you know, I wanted to try to get as much reference material out of it as I could. Also, this isn't going to be like a one-to-one, like, how to draw Rodan. This is the absolute 100% right way to draw Rodan. This is just how I'm seeing him. One of the best ways to learn how to draw one of your favorite characters is to look for a model sheet of them. Preferably one that's drawn in pencil, but of course, you know, don't go and buy one. You'll be spending hundreds of dollars. Do a Google search, see what you can find, and notice how the artist who drew the model sheet broke down the proportions of the character. Review any notes that the artist makes about the character on the model sheet. Like certain things to watch out for. Because this was something that was sent around to other artists in either an animation studio or, in the case of Toho, this is what was used when making and, in some cases, remaking monster suits. Because at the core of these films was stunt actors in very large, often uncomfortable rubber costumes. So, okay, good. I mean, it's like, how do the wings kind of like... See, that's the thing that I'm trying to understand. So here, I'm not thinking about drawing a guy in a rubber suit. I'm thinking about, you know, I'm thinking about the monster himself. I try not to think in terms of being quote-unquote realistic, because I think realism is BS to begin with. I think if you try to make certain things too real, then it kind of loses the charm of these characters. So my attitude is, you know, I mean, remember, this is at its core fantasy. I think if you lose track of that, you lose the spirit of what the creators were you lose the spirit that the creators had. And I mean, it's like, on one hand, yeah, you know, I mean, the annoying thing is you always have to think about, oh, what would the creators do? Oh, what would the creators do? So, on that same token, you have to go beyond the creators. Because what they were doing was using their ingenuity and creativity to bring these magnificent stories with magnificent characters and creatures to the screen in any possible way that they could. Because they didn't have American movie studio budgets. Let's just, make that very clear. An American science fiction film of the time would probably have, even a low-budget American science fiction film, would have about up to and including 3 times the budget of a Japanese-made science fiction film. So let's say Rodan cost maybe, I don't know, something like the US equivalent of $225,000. An American science fiction film made that same year would probably be at least $500,000 or $750,000. Because movie studios began seeing a trend of how these films were performing at the box office, and even though monster movies were looked upon as quote-unquote schlock cinema, the fact that they were profitable was nothing to sneeze about, especially being that King Kong, although originally released in 1933, was still proving to be a box office success even into the 1950s. The story I keep hearing, and I'm trying to find evidence to this, is that when King Kong was re-released in 1952, it made more money that year than it did in 1933. It had made more money than ever. How much money that was, I don't know. But if any of you want something to do today, find that out. Because I'm curious myself. But speaking of Kong, the Japanese cinema, at least the Kaiju avenue of it, traces its roots to King Kong as well. Because if not for King Kong, there might not have been a Godzilla. Because Godzilla took a lot of inspiration and a lot of cues from Kong. And part of that is due to the fact that Godzilla co-creator Eiji Tsuburaya was enamored with Kong when he first saw it. He even found a way to get his own film print. And film prints of King Kong, now especially, are not easy to get. And certainly not for cheap. And certainly not uncensored. For a split second, I thought the music that I had playing was "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel, but then I'm like, nah, I don't think Epidemic Sound has the rights to put that song up for use in its library. That'd be cool, but at the same time, it's not the case. This is really cool. I like this because previously what I had to do was I had to put a background color behind this so that when I'm coloring the character, I make sure that I'm not missing anything. But in this particular case, you know, that makes things a lot easier for me. And what I'm gonna do is these colors right here seem to look the most what's that phrase my friend Mary uses? Screen accurate? Do you want to call it that? I'm not sure what to call it, but Mary Greco, if you're watching, let me in on some insight, some fan lingo that I don't know, even being a fan of things. For a monster that I don't really, you know, I could take or leave. I'm kind of happy with the way that this turned out. I wouldn't call it my best, but, you know, I wouldn't call it my worst either. I'm liking this. I'm digging him. Give him a great tongue, because I don't know about you, but if Rodan existed, I wouldn't want to get too close to him to try to examine what color his tongue is, because that could be hazardous to my health. Definitely doesn't have pearly whites. Let's be real. I don't know what Rodan regularly eats other than giant bugs, but I don't want to know. Now you might think, okay, you're gonna waste time and go through all of that? No, not really. I don't think so. For this, okay. It's like all these errors I'm finding like now and not after I've gone to print. Which, if you've ever had that experience, it can be very annoying. Now there's another empty space up here that I missed. Where is it? Perhaps I got up. No, there's one. Okay. Now what we're going to do, Shift Command D, and I think we're going to add some shading. I don't think there's any harm in it. Also, we are going to save him. I don't like that. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to draw over it. There we go. I just think it makes a lot of sense to have his wings connected to the body in some way. I haven't taken a very close look at the 2019 Rodan, but this kind of seems to be the case with him. Not so much on the 56 suit, only because they were looking for certain things to be practical. And I mean, I have tried in so many different methods. There is really no shortcut for this. I mean, you can create brushes, of course, in Illustrator, but that'll only get you so far before you say to yourself, it's just so much less of a headache just doing what I'm doing right now. For the longest time, I struggled to watch Rodan because, being spoiled by Godzilla, I just didn't have as much interest. But now that I've actually seen the film, I mean, it's worth it. I wouldn't say I highly recommend it, but I do recommend it if you're a fan of Japanese giant monsters, because this is the building blocks of it. Godzilla came first in this line of giant monster movies. Then came Anguirus, Rodan, Mogira, Mothra, King Kong in 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, and many, many, many others. King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah remains my favorite of Japanese giant monsters. I think for the longest time after the original Showa series of Godzilla films, Toho just could not get Ghidorah right. Like, I mean, 91 Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was a disappointment. Still is, to me. Others say it's one of the best in the series because it goes through Godzilla's origins again. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. At the same time, when Ghidorah, in his original form, pre-Mecha King Ghidorah, is defeated a little too easily, and Showa Ghidorah, I mean, forget about it. Forget about it. That's like, he got his ass handed to him in Destroy All Monsters, but at least he stayed in one piece. Not like some of the other films in the series, where he kind of loses his head. See, this part isn't so bad as long as you keep a rhythm going. And I mean, it's like if the texture starts to look a little ridiculous, that's because, you're thinking too hard about it. The idea is, don't overwhelm yourself with certain details. As long as it looks like the character, I doubt certain people are going to care. Like, I mean, the average person will not care. I think the average person doesn't even know what Rodan looks like. course they're not going to care. It's funny. I'm looking outside and it almost feels like, in a way, it might rain today. Doubt it, though. But if you've had carpal tunnel before, which I think I have, you might want to take it easy. And in some cases, switch hands. I might change the color of these slightly. There we go. I think the blur made a difference. Okay. Oh, I forgot to sign. What am I thinking? Okay, that is all said and done. All right, so a few announcements as per usual. I am booking birthday parties and corporate events. You can message us or visit DrezenMedia.com for more details. Everything is going to be done through social distancing now because, we're still... Some of you need to be reminded we're in the middle of a pandemic. But I can do Zoom. I can do a Facebook room. I can teach your kids how to draw. It will be fun. And for when that's over, I have a board game, LuckyZilla the Game, that is still plentifully available on LuckyZilla.com. So that's all I have for today. Our next episode is going to be... Let's see now. Our next episode is going to be this Thursday. So be sure to tune in and stay drawsome.